guys, welcome back to Spelling and Word Study. My name is Mrs. Rhoades and I'm here to get you started on Unit 11, the ATION ending. Please take a second to gather your materials. You will need your green book open to page 71. You will also need some colorful pens, markers, or crayons. Remember, whatever I mark up on the board, you should be marking on your page. Please save room for a key as well. If that doesn't fit on the page, a separate sheet of paper is fine. If at any point I'm moving too fast, please pause the video and catch up. All right, so for the last several weeks, we have been learning about derivational suffixes. Those are letter combinations that we add to the end of a word that change its part of speech. So for instance, last week, we looked at the derivational suffix OR, and we found out that when we put that at the end of a word like illustrate or direct, it takes those verbs and turns them into nouns. So an illustrator is a person who illustrates. A director is a person who directs. We also used, a couple weeks ago, the derivational suffix IVE, and we found out that that suffix can change a verb to an adjective. So for instance, if you like to create things, you are creative. If you assert yourself and you speak up, you are assertive. So we are changing each of those words from a verb to an adjective. This week we have a new derivational suffix. This ATION ending is going to take a verb and change it to a noun. Okay? Now you'll notice I already marked up the words. I broke them into syllables and then I checked off the stressed syllable. If you want to take a second to pause the video and mark up your list and your key, go ahead and do that. All right, so let's continue. I'm going to read each word. Please repeat it after me, and as you do, try to find the verb hiding in that word. Here we go. Admiration, cancellation, combination, conservation, conversation, declaration, expiration, exploration, imagination, information, inspiration, invitation, observation, organization, perspiration, presentation, preservation, reservation, transformation, and transportation. All right, you notice that for every single one of our words this week, the stressed syllable is the syllable that starts the suffix, that has the A in it. So let's quickly take a marker, and we're just going to go through, and we're going to put a box around the ATION in each word. Okay? Because that is the suffix. That is the thing that we're tacking on. And if we can get that out of the way, it'll be much easier to find our verbs. All right. Almost done. Okay, so remember, ATION just tells us that the word is a noun. Okay, so red rectangle equals derivational suffix. It is changing a verb to a noun. Okay, now let's go back and try to find those verbs. And I want you to notice how the verb's pronunciation changes. So in number 1, our verb is admire. When you admire someone, you look up to them, right? You are filled with admiration. Notice what happened to that I there. Instead of being a long I, like in admire, it turned into the schwa, admiration, right? We know that happens to a lot of syllables when they're unstressed. Okay, if you cancel your dinner reservation, you make a cancellation, or they note the cancellation, right? If you combine things, mix them together, you have a combination. If you conserve things, you care about conservation, right? So if you conserve water, if you conserve paper, if you conserve trees, you are trying not to waste them, okay? So conservation is the act of not wasting natural resources. If you converse with people, you have a conversation. Converse just means talk. If you declare something, you're making a declaration. If something expires, it runs out, it's no good anymore. It's now its expiration, or its expiration date. If you explore an area, you are having an exploration. If you imagine things, you are using imagination. If you inform people, you are giving them information. If you inspire people, you are filling them with inspiration. If you invite people, you're giving them an invitation. If you observe something, you're making an observation. If you organize stuff, you are good at organization. If you perspire, which means sweat, you are dealing with perspiration. If you present something to an audience, you are making a presentation. If you preserve something, you save it for later, like farmland. You are, so if you're preserving it, you're concerned about preservation. If you reserve something, like a table at a restaurant or a book from the library, you are making a reservation. If you transform something, you change it completely, you are making a transformation. And if you transport something, you carry it from one place to another, then you are using transportation. All right, so in all of these cases, that blue line represents our verb. Now I want you to notice something that happened to words like admire, combine, conserve, converse. All of these verbs end with an E, right? A silent E. But just like we have to drop the E when we add ing or ed or ive, we also have to drop that E when we add ation. We don't have to drop the E if we add an S, or if we add a suffix like ment. So what's the difference? Why do we drop the E for these suffixes, but not for these suffixes? All right, good eye. You probably noticed that these are all vowel suffixes. When a suffix starts with a vowel, we drop the E. When a suffix starts with a consonant, we keep the E. Okay? All right, so keep that in mind. And now, what I want to do is I want to introduce a new root to you because you're going to see it when you get to page 74, okay? On page 74, you're going to learn that there are two Latin roots that mean breathe. There is the root spire, and there is the root HAL. So, whenever you see a word that has this in it, it's going to have something to do with breathing. So, for instance, if you inhale, you breathe in. If you exhale, you breathe out, okay? So this root here tells us the word has something to do with breathing. Well, it's the same thing with this root. So whenever you see a word that has spur or spire in it, it has something to do with breathing. So for instance, look at the word inspiration. If somebody if somebody inspires you, they're filling you with inspiration. They're like breathing new life into you. So for inspiration, I'm going to write breathe in new life. Okay, so for instance, I never thought I would be a YouTuber, but then I saw these other people doing it and they inspired me. They breathed in new life to me. So I'm like, I could do that, right? So that's inspiration. Perspiration doesn't have anything to do with breathing, right? It's about sweat. But per means through. So when you perspire, you're breathing sweat through your pores. I know that doesn't make sense. But a lot of our words have kind of weird beginnings. So when you perspire, you sweat. It's loosely related to this breathing thing because, you know, it's like you're breathing sweat out of your pores. Okay, and then the other one is expire. Notice the S has been dropped from there because that would just look weird to have an X, then an S, then a P. But expire comes from that same root. If something expires, it dies. It's no longer any good. It has taken its last breath. So think of it that way. The expiration date is the day that, you know, those strawberries or that gallon of milk takes its last breath. It's no good after that. And when you get to page 74, you'll see other words that have the same root. For instance, respiration, inhaler, that sort of thing. So more practice when you get to that page. All right, you guys have plenty to think about now. So good luck, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.